Friday morning I woke up to absolutely torrential rain, so I drove into Blois to see the chateau. Actually not very much to look at on the outside, it's all about the inside. You go into a courtyard where a gargoyle was pouring lots of water into the centre, and the first thing you see is the external staircase, like as you've seen in previous castles, which is very much of the age. Inside there's lots of architectural drawings showing how it actually comprises 4 different styles of castle throughout, and also an interesting display of gargoyles, either the animal kind or the human kind. I think we should bring gargoyles back, it makes a change from guttering. Anyway, then there were lots of much larger rooms in the other chateau, which you reach by going up the wonderful external staircase, which gave you an opportunity to look at the outside of one of the different phases of this much rebuilt castle. And I don't think people really spend as much time looking at the intricate stone carving and detail and the symbolism that's built into the exterior of these chateaux, or everything has a meaning. Then lots of different rooms. This is the king's room, and I didn't realise that really the royal court moved from chateau to chateau, 1,000 people moving around the country at the whim of the king, and he would live in this room and the other bedroom. Lots of salamander emblems, Francois I, and also ermine or stoat, which was his Queen Claude. Then this is where you would have an audience with the king, who was very keen on etiquette, keeping himself away from the ordinary people. More salamander motifs, lots of portraits of different things happening, lots of intricate fireplaces, and again displays of how the entire king's possessions and tapestries from all of the walls were packed and carted off to different places. This is the dress which you saw in the picture in the previous chateau of Catherine de' Medici, which is in the portrait of her quite well known. A lot also about the women and what they got up to, which was basically socialising and scheming. Lots of big rooms with not very much in them, apart from beds. This is the king's bedroom, and he basically held court here if it wasn't in the big room downstairs. And this is where he murdered the Duke of Guise, who he saw as a rival. After that I went to this bizarre museum of magic, but you couldn't film inside, it rained all afternoon. Saving the best to last, this is Chambord. This is the approach to this ridiculously ostentatious and over-the-top castle, which was started in 1519, 4 years after Francois I became king, and it then took 20 years to build it, and he only lived there for another 6 years before he died. And it was extended quite considerably over the next 100 years or so, and it truly is something which I've never seen anything like, and probably the most amazing castle in the whole of France. And it's really all those ridiculous turrets and towers which make it seem so bizarre, plus the enormous estates around it and gardens. In fact, it wasn't actually complete until about 1684, and Louis XIV lived here, followed by the exiled King of Poland, followed by various other people who extended it. The furniture was sold after the French Revolution. A fascinating video inside explained the architecture and engineering behind it, and the symbolic nature of the symmetry and the basing of it on Italianate architecture and the Greek cross of all things. You enter through the other side, through the courtyard, and once you get in, you're confronted by literally the centerpiece, the double spiral staircase, 2 helixes interlinked, so 2 people walking up will never see each other. And it is something to behold. You can't really get anything like an idea of how amazing it is just looking at this video. But anyway, up I went. That's the view in the central column looking right the way up to the top. Then you get on to the next floor and you can see it a bit better. You can also get an idea of just the huge size of all of the spaces in this building. You can look outside and see the more conventional at the time external staircase at a single helix. And then inside a series of rooms, all elaborately decorated on the wall hangings with fantastic views over the amazing gardens with the royal fleur-de-lis set out in the grass. This room was set out more in a later style, and the king's bed was kept behind a guardrail because he liked to keep his people away from him, and there was very strict etiquette introduced. In contrast, Francis I, when the castle was built, lived in relatively austere surroundings because the court would move around regularly around France, and all of the hangings and the wall insulation would be packed up and taken round. So cosy, but not as you might imagine. Again, this alleyway has been decorated to show how the walls would have been covered with this hangings to keep the place warm. This is a more ostentatious version with a throne in a later arrangement. Don't forget, this has been around for 500 years, so lots of different styles of interior have been used. This is a heater, believe it or not. Ceramic heaters were introduced as the castle was renowned to be freezing cold in winter and infested with mosquitoes in the summer. This is a vaulted ceiling emblazoned with lots of embellished Fs, and also the salamander, which was Francois I's emblem, breathing fire. And the exterior again, fantastic views. But you can then get up onto the roof terraces and walk around and see the amazing carving. It started to rain at this point, unfortunately, but it's just utterly amazing. This is the central staircase which pops right up out the roof with a royal fleur-de-lis on the top, and again a view over the gardens. You can see the way the royal fleur-de-lis has embellished everything, and the view right into the distance, going for probably a couple of miles, is a pathway, and that's where I started this, with the view from the windscreen of the van. I then drove 4 hours to Dieppe, and it was nice and sunny there. There was a market, and I walked along the beach, and that's my 5 days, 5 chateau dash.